share with me and get to know me.
Working within it so that you can trust
You gotta
them.
be able to produce things. And I'll tell you why that production is so important. But before we go there, how do you use those two pieces of equipment? And
Success is not necessarily financial, but success is when you feel fulfilled in what you're doing. And then
to other women, they need to know their value, their worth.
But I believe everything that you put your mind to and you achieve, it's success.
Give us all the stuff.
Okay, I'll answer all 16 of those questions right now. I started in the music business at Sony while I was still...
And welcome to the show. My name is Renee Hastings, and I'm your host of Renee Speaks. Y'all, today's show is gonna be fabulous. I'm so excited to introduce to you Marisa Cali. Marisa has managed her own consulting business since 2015. And she embraces the benefits and challenges of the work from anywhere lifestyle. She launched the Be Present Events division of her consulting business, which blends her love of tech, project management, and creativity. Over the last 4 years, Marisa has had the pleasure of working with exceptional corporate and educational institution partners to execute virtual summits, exclusive fireside chats, inspirational keynotes, and podcasts that build community. Y'all put your hands together for Marisa Cali. Hey, how are you?
Thank you. Thank you for the intro and the enthusiasm. You are exuding it. I feel it over here in my different areas. So yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Renee.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. I know you and I connected some time ago, earlier this year, with a mutual friend, Ross Brand. Let's shout him out. His 100 TV network on YouTube, and had so much fun with that. That was such a tremendous experience.
Yes.
And with 2023 being our first year, actually, of being podcasters, that was like the icing on the cake, being a podcaster to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, we always struggle with getting our message out, and we see a bunch of people. It's really easy to fall into imposter syndrome, but that collaborative way that Ross developed the 100 TV network, where we're all creating, we're all trying to lift each other up, was such a unique idea. Obviously it didn't work out right now, but that doesn't mean it can't work out. But we're building other relationships like you and I. I'm still doing the podcast on our own network and realizing how much work he put into it. So I'm so grateful for Ross, but also, it really empowered us to actually create. We had, if you listen to one of our first episodes, it's like, oh, we were planning, we were project managing. We're like, okay, how do we do this? And then it was like, oh, you have to have your first episode in 2 weeks. You're like, oh, okay. Well, let's get to it, and
Let's get our act together.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what your experience was when you started, but yeah, it was definitely like, okay, yeah, we have to start doing this.
Right. It definitely elevated us and took us to another level, I think, when it comes to podcasting, and giving us an opportunity to kind of tap into our creative juices.
Right.
I think, to figure out how to make this work, because my thing was I was trying to incorporate his program with the program that I already had on, for Renee Speaks. And so the opportunity to transition from one show to the next in the same episode was
Right.
our challenge, but it was fun figuring it out and just kind of going with it and see what happened. And so, anyways, I'm so grateful for that experience and so grateful that I got to know you through that experience.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
So Marisa, tell us a little bit more about how you got started on this journey. I know this is a pretty unique space. How did it all come about?
Yeah, so my background is in website and like agency work. We did a lot of website related projects. So I was answering questions from how do I get my domain up? My email's not working. And I'm like, that's not your website. But, they were our client and we needed to make sure this website went live. So that's like where I started. I was always in a project management, client facing role. And then I graduated into a larger agency that was very specific in their industry. And I went remote. And this was remote in 2013. So it was like, this is my lifestyle, right? Like, I'm going to work remote. It was supposed to last 2 months because we were transitioning my role out, and it lasted 2 years. So I learned how to be in a corporate role pre-pandemic, pre everything, working from home, and that kind of opened the door for they changed their corporate structure and I was laid off. And it was a blessing in that sense because I wouldn't be where I am now without that. As much as that was could be seen as a letdown at the time, it definitely was, but I don't think I would be where I'm at without that. That's 2015 and I'm figuring out what I'm going to do. And I was always creating content, always figuring out what's the best digital tool that people can use. I'm figuring out how I'm running my business, but also how can I benefit other people, not just setting up a Facebook page for people, but what are we doing for them? And how can I do it digitally? Because my contacts were still in New York. They still were like different areas, right? Because that was just how I was working. And then the pandemic hit, and I was already doing like a show, I guess, with one of my colleagues with StreamYard. And we just started using StreamYard to create content virtually and remotely. And that was able to catapult me into like I was working for StreamYard temporarily. We were getting people that knew how to produce StreamYard content and put them into like a database. So we were building a producers program and then they got acquired. So they got acquired and the program was kind of like was being built. So it wasn't something that was like already in the budget. We were it was more of a consulting role. I already knew that there was a market out there for people that help produce your podcast, help produce content that I'm doing. So I just dove right in and created a brand in March 2020, like basically saying, I'm here to help you do these things. And I was pretty much behind the scenes from day one of pandemic creating content using StreamYard.
Wow. Wow. That is so fantastic. And to have had the opportunity to work remotely before remote work was a thing. I think I can see how that not only prepared you for for when the pandemic did hit. I mean, because you were already doing everything. So people probably called on you and said, "Hey, Marisa, you've been doing this for forever. How do we do this? Whole entire company so that everyone can do what you're doing."
My only regret is that I didn't invest in Zoom stock before the pandemic because I knew about Zoom. I used it. I was a user for like I think since 2016, 17. And I'm like, dang it, I should have.
Right. If we only knew. If we only knew. Wow. And so, Marisa, with that remote experience, you're on video a lot. A lot.
Yes.
So, as a remote worker, and the title of our show today is called Video Presence, Genuine You. I'm sure you are a subject matter expert in what it takes to not only look good on video, but how to feel confident and on the camera. So, how can you be your true authentic self while on video platforms? What exactly does that mean to you? And what should it mean to our audience?
Yeah, I think I started doing a lot of social video, like selfie video. This was maybe 2018. And that was one of the ways to get me comfortable recording and talking into a screen, because that's like not a natural thing. It's
Right.
not like you and I talking where I'm talking back and forth with you, but you're like talking to someone, talking to your audience.
Right.
And I did that a lot to just get comfortable with pressing record and posting it. And my trick on that was I didn't look at the video after I posted it. If I knew, if I knew what I was talking about and I was happy with what I said, because it's very confident and about a specific topic, then I posted it because I didn't want to overthink. Oh, like, oh, my double chin, or I don't like the way my ear looks, or like where my mouth moves, because that's something that I hear from a lot of people, especially women, that they don't feel like they show up as, or they don't like the way they look. Now, I
Right.
always would that's like an inherent thing for a lot of people, but I always
Yeah.
say, well, when you go to a networking event, that's how you look. And
Right.
as much as you think that you can adjust it with, you can't adjust it with AI. You can't talk to someone in person and change how you look. And I'm not trying to downplay someone's feelings about how they look. It's just, it is that. So once you post it, it's there, right? So you
Right.
can't go and change it. And if you go and look at it and you want to change it, you're never going to post it. You're never going to get comfortable. So that was always something that I suggested to people, just start posting, because people see you in person. And I'm not looking, if I like talk business with you and I'm like, I'm not judging how you look, right?
Right.
I'm judging the quality of our conversation. Are you making eye contact?
Yeah.
Do you feel my emotions? There's all these things that are in regular human to human, person to person contact. And you have to translate that into online and say, people are like, oh, I said too much. And I'm like, you say in person, or you say like I say like a lot because I'm from California. And that's just, I try not to be too hard on myself, because that's how I am in person.
Right.
So
That's right. And how you are in person and how you show up on video, that is truly being authentic. And we truly can be our own worst critics a lot. Like you said, especially with women, just being so overly critical of our appearance or how we sound, or like you said, double chins and then things like that. And then even as we get older, maybe wrinkles or whatever, you know what I mean? But I'm like, look, I
that's how
am
you
who
look.
I am. Isn't that what Popeye said? I am who. And so being authentic and being true to yourself and your appearance, being confident in who you are and what you bring to the table and what you have to offer in a conversation, that's what matters.
Right.
That's what really counts, because something that someone else doesn't know. And so that's what you're bringing to the table is your subject matter expertise. So because you have that, you are offering something of value. And that's what is the most important thing,
Yeah.
not appearance.
A good friend of mine says, you're famous to a few people. And a lot of people think that. I've heard, I just had a conversation. I wasn't feeling my 100% like self, but I was authentically, it was in person. And I was telling her, thank you for meeting with me. I wasn't really feeling that great lately. And she's like, that's so interesting, because I just see you every time I see you. You're so confident. You show up, and it just like made me melt, because I was like, I'm doing it even if my head tells me that I'm not. Like,
Right.
I'm showing up because I've practiced. I've not practiced, but I've just like keep showing up. And
Right.
the more you show up with what your expertise, people see that, even if they don't like your post or they don't comment right away. They're seeing it some
Yeah.
way, somehow. So
Exactly. And the thing is too that when you do show up, and even in spite of how you're feeling inside, that courage is building such character. And the more you do that, the stronger you get, the more confident you get, the more you're able to just go out there and just do it. And no one would be the wiser. No one would even know that you're not feeling you're 100% confident. And
Yeah.
one of the things that's kind of like one of my pet peeves is when somebody gets up to say something, excuse me, whether they're in person or online, and they're like, "Oh, I'm not the greatest speaker, but I'm gonna give it a shot." So, but basically, they're like negating their whole speech before they even get started.
Right.
Whereas if they had never said that, they could have gotten to the end. They could have felt like they completely bombed it. But because I didn't know any better and what I received was amazing, I would
Yeah.
have I would have said that was incredible. That was amazing. But because you started out saying, "Oh, I'm not the greatest speaker, but here goes," it
Right.
automatically put me in a different mindset.
Right. And they don't know what you prepped for. They don't know what you expected in your head of it should be, what it should be. So you don't need to bring that out and say, well, I may not be giving you all the information that I think. And I'm like, what? Just give them information.
Don't tell them what you didn't tell them
Right.
because they didn't know.
Oh, I wish I could have done this. What? I didn't even know we needed that. Yeah.
Exactly. And before I was, it kind of reminds me of a party I was having just recently. And it was a pretty big party at my house. And there was a lot of decoration involved and hands-on. I really went all out for it. And there were so many things I wanted to for the ladies that were coming over in terms of different decorations and activities and things like that. And I had a friend call me and tell me just what you said. She goes, "No one knows what you were going to do.
Right.
So what you're doing is enough.
Right.
It's perfect. It's fine." And that really just settled my spirit so much. Because I was like all in a frenzy, like, "Oh my God, I'm not going to get everything done." And she's like, "You've done enough.
Yeah.
It's enough. No one knows."
And that easily translates to your online digital presence because you want to do all these things. I want to post all these things. I want to write this blog and make sure there's a giveaway, especially when you're working for yourself. If you don't have a team to help you out, to keep you accountable, no one knows that you're supposed to be doing that. That's something you told yourself. So
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. So don't be so hard on yourselves.
yeah, for sure.
So, Marisa, are there any tips that you can give us to stay present with intention and preparedness, especially in this digital space? How can we show up intentionally and prepared?
Yeah, I adopted the 4-day work week recent or maybe in 2022 actually. I wouldn't say recently. That's like a while. So it's really beneficial because I really focus knowing that I'm going to have Friday open. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't work Fridays. That means I'm not going to schedule meetings. I'm going to really be intentional with my time during the week, during the work week. But if that means that I open my laptop on a Sunday when I'm watching whatever TV or listening to music just to get a few things done, then that's fine because that's me opening my boundary. But what it opens up on Friday is that I can go run errands, go to the post office, do my self-care. I can actually take a meeting that I'm excited about. I mean, this is Friday, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm here, I'm present because it took us a little bit to connect, but it was very intentional. Like I knew that I was going to be on here today and with enthusiasm, not dread, right?
Right.
So that's like just one really, if you can do it, I would say try to do 4-day work week. Another thing is giving yourself like 15-20 minutes before and after each meeting. I think a lot of people are stuck on the mindset that they need to fill up their day to feel productive because they're so used to like the standard 9 to 5. And even now with remote work, people just stack meetings back to back and there's no time to regroup, refresh yourself, go to the bathroom, even get some water, right? It's like, oh, I have a meeting. I've been sitting at this computer for 6 hours. That time of quiet space to reflect or write some meeting notes, or we have AI now to write our meeting notes. But yeah, this just the pause, right? Just pause, hold your time and respect your boundaries so you don't burn out. So if you think that you're going to like shut off at 5, then hold it. don't think that you need to respond after 5 if that's what your boundary is. Last night I worked till 8. Why? Because I wanted to prep for today to have like not feel stress in the morning because I was going to record with you and I don't want to feel like I need to do something to while I'm with you. And then this one can be tough for people because it might show some weakness, but ask for help and be vulnerable. I think the thing is like being vulnerable, right? Telling people that you need help. It's okay to ask for help. And I think people are just so nervous about doing that because then they'll be like showcasing maybe some weak side of themselves or whatever. But I think asking for help is not a problem. And I have one final one, which is kind of funny. If it's not a heck yeah, it's a heck no.
I love that one.
Like if you're not all in on like trying it, I mean, you could try something out. I'm gonna try that out. But if you're like, I don't really want to try that, don't try it then. If you're
Yeah.
not
Or if you're just kind of waffling about it, like,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, yeah, maybe no. Yeah, I love that. If it's not a heck yeah, it's a heck no, because you're not all in. You're not excited about it. You're not passionate about it. You're not going to give it your all. You're going to be all waffly.
Yes. And that will reflect in when you hit record, if you're trying to send an email out, let's wait till that enthusiasm is there and the passion where you can exude that in a digital space.
Definitely. I love that. And also do what you love to do when it's your time to do those things. Because some people are morning people and some people are night people.
Right.
And so when you understand which person you are, that's when you do those things that are most important and those things that are most fun, because that's when you bring the energy.
Yes.
Which is so important on video and being a part of a digital or having a digital presence.
Right. Yeah. And I think also being okay with this is coming up, being okay with just a phone call. I think we're so stuck in like people getting on Zoom or getting into video. And there's a subconscious thing that I have to be video ready.
Yeah.
If we showed up and like we're just chatting, we're friends, like it's not a big deal. But like if you're going to a business meeting or a networking thing that's going to represent you and your business, and you don't feel like you can show up that way with confidence, then I would say either skip it or find something where you can just talk to someone on the phone. I did that a couple of days ago because we're just always on video.
Right.
You can really, and one of my superpowers is active listening. A lot of times in a social situation, I'm the quiet one listening to people because I really want to hear what people have to say. Especially if it's a business, I want to hear like their pain points. I'm not going to talk a lot about what I do unless the opportunity presents itself. But I think using the phone, we get the chance to do that because we're not focused on what's on the background, where their eyes are moving, if they're actually multitasking.
Right.
We're just listening to what they have to say. So,
right.
Yeah.
Those are really, really great suggestions for how to be prepared. But the more you talked about the 4-day work week, so I'm going to digress a little bit.
Yeah.
What exactly does that look like? Does that look like a 10-hour day, 4 days a week, kind of like in corporate America? Or how do you actually do the 4 days without impacting the day that you choose to be your non-work day?
Yeah. And
Whether it's Friday or Monday or whatever.
Yeah, we don't, from what I have a set like few days where I'm away from the screen and like connecting in person, whether it's like a networking event or I'm going to go to the coffee shop and work. Setting defined hours for your business from like creative time. So like it's Monday morning because people are checking their emails. They're not really, I mean, they might be emailing us, but they're not making decisions until maybe late Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? So that's kind of how I've curated my schedule. Mondays are kind of wide open for meetings, Tuesday, creative time, Wednesday, meetings again, creative time. And so like it can be a 10-hour workday depending on how busy you are. Like my work is revolved around events. So
Mhm.
it could be like really busy in like beginning of November, and then like it's Thanksgiving and after is kind of like there's nothing really going on. People are planning for 2024. So
Right.
it can be a full workday, 4 days a week, but it doesn't have to be, because that's based on I'm speaking to the people that are working for themselves. Now, corporate, I don't, but when you're working for yourself, you can control that. So,
Mhm.
how realistic is it to take on 5 new clients in a week? Like, can
Right.
you serve them properly the way you want to? You might have to push someone back, or like you have to be honest with your time frame and your planning. Instead of trying to squish everyone into like 1 week, just make sure that they sign on as a client, or make sure that they still want to work with me. People are going to work with you whether you can, like, they like you because you and your skill set, not necessarily because you met with them on a Friday afternoon. Because you're going to have that time where you're going to want Friday afternoon in the summer, and they're going to be so used to you just catering to you, that, or catering to their schedule, that you're going to never have your boundary. So it's it's a skill set, I would say, but also I think it takes some practice, because you have to be able to be okay with saying no to someone that wants a meeting at a certain time, because you hope that that doesn't fray the relationship that you have. But also, if it's your boundary, then you can show up better the next morning or the next day, and more
Yeah.
present. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as a business owner,
mhm.
you have to set your own schedule
Yeah,
and you have to stay within your own boundaries
yeah,
and enforce them. It's okay to enforce your own boundaries. That's part of self-care, I think. We talked about that in another show. But it's so important to take care of yourself and set these boundaries, and don't engage clients outside of those boundaries that you've set for yourself. And
right.
there's so many ways to navigate that from a professional standpoint. When they ask for a meeting outside of your boundaries, you could easily say something like, "Oh, I have a conflict." Or and then offer another time. How about tomorrow morning? Or other
Yeah,
different options, especially if there's no deadline, or it's not sensitive or urgent or something like that. "Oh, I have a conflict. Sorry. How about tomorrow at 8?" And
yeah,
business people are reasonable. Business
yes,
people understand.
yeah.
You will not lose the relationship, I promise. Like, I
No,
shouldn't
and and
promise, but I'm just
if you
saying.
do, then that's not someone. I mean, I don't want to work with someone that's not going to honor my boundaries. Look, I
Right.
went through a really, like, a personal thing this summer that I had to cancel a bunch of things, and I wasn't myself.
Mm,
And all the people that I worked with were super, like, supportive, right? And those
yeah.
who were not my clients, or were not people that I was potentially talking to, because that's just my life. Like, I couldn't take a call. Like, I was not ready for it, you know? So there's definitely some, if there's a yellow flag, most likely it's going to be a red flag later on. So pay
Mhm.
attention to those.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yellow flags lead to red
Yeah.
flags. So pay attention to those yellow flags
Yeah.
and nip it in the bud. And you had such a great point, Marissa, that if someone cannot respect your boundaries, maybe that's not the greatest client for you,
Hmm.
because you want to work with people who are understanding or who have similar values. Or
Hmm.
and if you're an understanding person and accommodating and that sort of thing, those are the kinds of people we want to surround ourselves with, right?
Right. Yeah.
So for sure, I love that. So kind of switching gears a little bit, looking into the future,
Hmm.
how do you expect, or what are some upcoming trends in video presence, and what can we look forward to, do you think? What's your prediction?
Yeah, we do a lot of virtual events. So I'll definitely speak about that, because I think a lot of people are thinking that now that we're back in person, like, virtual events are gone. I would say no, because the big companies are still doing virtual, because they saw benefit, the cost effectiveness of
Mhm.
putting on a virtual event that was really well produced or really represented their brand. And I would say this, like, podcast is a virtual event even though it's a podcast. And
Mhm.
because you're branded, you're showing up with enthusiasm, you have guests prepared, like you've done all the steps that makes it an event because it showcases not just me, but it showcases you as a leader in this space. So a lot of people are like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "This is what I do." It's similar to this, but
Mhm.
it's in a corporate setting and people are like, "Oh, well, no one's going to show up at my virtual event." And I'm like, events are content gold mines, right? Because
Mhm.
we have tons of content here, tons of sound bites, lots of little nuggets to take away. You can
Absolutely.
create that for your brand. Like, you're talking to me, but it's also to help promote you as a speaker and a podcast host, all the things. And people in the corporate setting have to understand that something like this can also reach not just the people that are watching it online, but people that might not be able to go to an in-person event. We talk a lot about DEI now,
Mhm.
diversity, equity, and inclusion. When
Yeah.
you're only doing in-person events, you're excluding all the people that cannot make it there because gas prices went up and they couldn't make it. They couldn't
Mm.
drive 45 minutes. Now you have nothing to share of value for someone who cannot get to something in
Right.
person, right? And I'm not saying put up a
Mm.
video camera and like record it and then that's your virtual event. No, that's a webcam. That's not a virtual event, but you can have a version of what your event is online. Whether it's if you're doing an event where you're learning something, why not have that also in a digital space on a different time that where people can show up and watch on their own? Then convert that into a podcast and people can listen to it while they're washing dishes or
Right.
what or riding in their bicycle or like walking in the park. So
Exactly.
I think what we see in virtual events is that they're not just a means to an end now. Oh, let's go virtual because that's all we can do. People are rethinking them in terms of like content gold mines and how you can reach many versus just the people that show up.
I
Yeah.
agree with that. Yeah, 100%. And then the other thing, in terms of the cost, I mean, it's a no-brainer for a corporation in terms of the cost savings for doing virtual events. I never really thought about the fact that someone cannot make it to a virtual event would fall up under the DE&I space. That's
Mhm.
a new way of thinking for me, but
Yeah.
you're absolutely right.
Mhm.
Because you want to be inclusive of everyone
Mhm.
when you're doing an event.
Right.
And so even if your event is in person, how about hybrid even?
Yeah.
That is it's a great way to manage costs and include everyone who can't make it there in person. And if
Mhm.
you're talking and you're polling the audience, why not take it digital and digital poll the folks digitally to see
Mhm.
online what are their thoughts, what are their opinions? They
Right.
can also have input as well. And then you share those results with the in-person audience as well.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a separate thing. But when
Right.
you bring technology into your virtual events, I
Mhm.
mean, it's a really fantastic experience, very engaging. And those are the ones that are remembered and those are the lessons I think that last the longest, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, I think it's you mentioned quizzes or some type of engagement and that I think if you're going back to like strictly virtual events, what are the trends, what are the intentions? I think you have to take your mission first and figure out, okay, how does the mission align with this event? Then the purpose. Okay, what is the purpose of this event? Is to educate? Is it to close more deals? Like what is the main thing? And then you have to have the enthusiasm for people to show up because you cannot just have a boring Zoom call anymore and just say, "This is our event." I'm like, "What?" I like don't see StreamYard's a good example because we're talking and then all these points are like coming up on the screen. Like that's not done in a boring Zoom call. like none
That's
of it, right? So this is
right,
a good
right.
example of how a virtual event can be. And we're talking, you and I, but imagine with like a live audience, right? Like we would have like a quiz or a giveaway or like some questions from the audience. I mean, there's so many different ways to
Yeah.
itch people when it comes to that. So, and I think
Yeah.
you're going to do it on LinkedIn. So like we can be in the chat on LinkedIn, right? So,
Right? Absolutely, absolutely. So there's so many. I love the engaging part of the virtual events.
mhm.
There's something about being at home and being able to click on a button to have my input counted
Yeah.
in this big old, audience and so many different people on and
Yeah.
participating. It's like, yes, I count. I pushed the button and I mattered.
Yeah. And acknowledging that, I think people like show up to these virtual events and there's a lot of like talking heads broadcast style. I
Mhm.
get that, but like if you're doing a live event and you have the chat, like why do you not acknowledge them or have someone engaging in the chat? Because that to me
Absolutely.
is like I'm not going to sit there for 45 minutes and listen to you if you don't even acknowledge me. I'll listen to a podcast. Yeah, tell me like I'll learn that way. I can do
Right.
something else. But if I'm watching you, I want to feel you, like bring me in, right?
Let me know you see me.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
So
for sure.
important. And I think that's a great nugget for anyone
Mhm.
who is doing a virtual event. Engage your audience.
Yeah.
Whoever is participating online, acknowledge their comments.
Yeah.
Let them know that they're seen. And people love to hear their name
Yeah.
online. Like by
Yeah.
the speaker, if the speaker or the host or whatever says that person's name who made a comment in the chat, people love that because
Yeah.
it makes them feel important. Like, yes, I added value to this show by my comment.
Yes. And I think that that's with something that's heavily promoted or there's enough time to promote where you have that engagement, but sometimes people don't prepare enough. And so like they're going live, but they don't think that like even the two people watching are could
Mhm.
be two really important people. So you have to engage them or try to engage them. And if you're not doing engagement, make sure it looks good for your business so you can reuse it. Like, if you're
Right.
just sitting there like, I heard a story where someone was waiting 11 minutes for people to show up live. "Oh, we're just waiting for more people. Oh, we'll just
What?
wait." And I'm like, "Oh, no, because those 2 people that were in there were like, "I'm here already. Let's get
Right.
to it." Waiting for people, it's not a good reflection of your brand because most people don't really look at the numbers that like, "Oh, there's a lot of people. Like, I'm gonna stay here." Or there's only 2
Right.
people. They're like, "Are you engaging me? Are you giving
Yeah.
me value or are you acknowledging that I'm here?" One or the other, or I'm out. Awesome.
Exactly, exactly. And that I think is so disrespectful to the two people who did take the time out of their day to show up to your
Right.
life.
Right.
That is so important. And I am so grateful that you brought that up because I don't think people realize the optics that
Mhm.
that's for your brand when you wait.
Yeah. They
And
must
you have
not have a producer like you and I, right?
right,
Right?
right.
They may not
Yeah,
have
yeah, you have to have somebody to help fill in that space.
right.
You have to have something that you're doing in those 11 minutes besides engaging those two people that are showing up to
Right.
talk about. Maybe you're talking, prepping people for what they're about to hear.
Right.
Maybe providing some history about what even presented this opportunity for
Right.
you to be presenting on this particular topic. Giving them
Oh,
some background, giving them maybe some behind the scenes kind of things going on that's happening while you fill that space, while you're
mhm.
waiting on more people to come, and still not disrespecting the two people who are there.
Right. Exactly.
So important. So important. So, as we're talking about this, and you're talking about being prepared,
Mhm.
I'm gonna be a little selfish here and ask for some advice for an event that I'm getting ready to do in January. Pretty big, and I want to be prepared, and I want the audience to be engaged. What
Mhm.
would you suggest I do to prepare in advance? So it's in January when this is December that we're in right now. So what would you how do you promote an event before you actually get there the most effective way so that when the participants come, they're looking forward to hearing what you have to say?
Yeah, one good thing, depending on the content of the event, I like to ask the questions during the registration process. So if you want to hear, I'll give you an example. One woman was speaking, and hold on one second. I'm like, my camera is messed up and I need to fix it. So give me one
Okay,
second.
no worries. We can actually pause if you want to.
No, it's okay. I think I reset it. There. Okay.
Cool.
Sorry
Look
about that.
fabulous.
It was blurry and it was bothering me. And I'm like, that's not me. It's not.
No
Yeah.
worries.
So, one example that I would say is really engaging the audience before the event. And by doing that, you can either do email campaign, you can do social media posts, you can reach out directly to the attendees. And if they have specific questions, or if you have one question you want answered, that you can bring in these answers into part of your presentation. One, it gets people excited about your event. It shows the intentionality, you know what I'm saying. Be
Yeah,
intentional about you connecting with them. I saw one example recently where there was a collaborative event. It was like a team building event. The woman spoke and then team building, but she had a playlist during the team building time, and the playlist was compiled from answers from the registration process of what song reminds you of, it was the 90s or growing up. And so everyone put their songs in, and I remember I still follow the playlist on Spotify because I was like, oh, that remind me, one, nostalgia of growing up, and two, this was an awesome event, like I'm going to remember these songs that were played. And it was like not related to specific her topic, but it was related to the experience. So that
Right.
was something that like brought in the audience and really was like, oh, when I heard my song, like I heard a bunch of songs that I was like, oh, this is my age demographic, because it was like song that reminded you of growing up. So there was a lot of songs of like when I was growing up. But I was
Right.
like, which song was mine? And then I kept thinking about it. Which one did I answer? I don't remember, because all of these songs are great. But it was very engaging in the beginning
Love that.
from registration.
Wow. Wow. I love that. That's a really great suggestion. And I will definitely keep that in mind. May have an opportunity to speak on a stage and share some materials in advance and in the room and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure that it's done really well and gets the most response.
Yeah. And I think if you are on stage, I would say keep in mind like the sustainability of your, I don't know if this aligns directly with your brand, but like paper waste. We waste a lot of paper at conferences and giveaways and all that. So make your freebies or whatever you're giving out digital. Make a slide with a QR code. Right. And this is it's very simple, but a lot of people just don't think about it when we're all used to QR codes now. Maybe 5 years ago, people were like, what is that on the screen? But
Yes.
people know now that's something that at first I was like, oh my God, QR codes, we're really using those. But it's now, and we're reducing our paper waste when it comes to sustainability, which is being forth with trends and being up to date with that. And I go to board meetings sometimes and I have the paper and I'm just like, what? I don't use notes, but then it's paper waste and tons of paper on my desk. And I'm like, why?
Why?
So,
Thank you so much. That is such a great tip. That's another nugget that we're definitely logging away and going to put into effect for this show. And it's so funny you were talking about paper waste, because I went to a meeting and someone had handouts of what we were going to be talking about. And I put it in my bag and I'm like, okay, I guess this is going to eventually go in a binder, maybe. But then I was with my husband yesterday and he was like, do you have a piece of paper? And I was like,
yeah,
flipped it over and wrote on the back of it, and that was like, it ended up being a scrap paper. You know what I mean? Because we're not about that paper life.
Hey, sometimes we need it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So we can't entirely give up on paper and pencils and pens. Those are gonna, I think, always have a life.
Yes, I agree.
So, Marisa, this has been so fantastic. This show, getting to know you, learning more tips and tricks about how we can be more genuine and authentic in our video presence. How can we stay in touch with you and how can we reach you?
Yeah, so I am always on LinkedIn. It's my preferred social media platform. I love it. I learn things all the time, and I can connect with people in my industry and outside of my industry. That's my social media platform. If you decide that you want to pick up the phone and call me, I am available by phone, which is very old school, but I gave the number. So it's 615-212-8993. So if anyone listening, yeah, you can call me or text me, WhatsApp me, whatever works. And then my website is Be Present LLC, and that's just connecting with me, and I'll call you basically, and you fill out the form. It's a basic website. So
Got it. Love it. And then you also have your resilient events on YouTube as well, where
yes,
people can watch
that's
you.
correct. Yeah, that's our events related podcast. We talk about how you can, the strategy and the tech and all the tips behind using events to grow your brand.
Yes. And I have actually watched your shows, started with the 100 TV, and I was like, oh my word, I didn't even think about this. This was such great advice. You were talking about these and audience engagement and audio, how to make sure that your audio is quality.
Yeah.
And so many great tips and tricks. I absolutely recommend people follow you on YouTube and get all of the tips for making a great event from Resilient Events on YouTube.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the shout out for Resilient Events. I know a lot of people don't know how to spell it. So a funny story, we call it RizPod because RizPod is the same, right? But it's so much easier to say RizPod.live because it's just, one, it's unique. And I don't know about you, but when I started typing out resilient, I'm like, is it RESA, RISA? You know, I'm like, oh, I had to Google.
So resilient.
I'm like, oh no. Yeah. So we said rizpod.live. And then I also, if you want some free stuff, you can go to liveshowprep.com and there's a prep checklist that'll give you a checklist of all the things you need for an event.
I love it. Love it. Love it. And the more we have these kinds of checklists, the more prepared we can be in advance, during, and after the show.
Yes.
And it really makes for an amazing audience experience. So love that so much. Any final words for us? How do you want to leave our audience today? What should we remember of all the things that we talked about today?
Yeah, I think one of the things is definitely stay curious and never stop learning. I think to say that I know everything is definitely not true, and I'm learning every day. I think you can approach that with your business, or even if you work in a corporate setting and want to do a side hustle, or you want to be a better employee or a collaborative partner. It's definitely open that and hopefully set your boundaries so you have the time to invest in yourself. If you don't invest in yourself, then it's not a good thing.
No bueno. No bueno.
Yeah.
I love that. So be curious and never stop learning. That is so crucial. And we'll always stay cutting edge. We'll always stay ahead of the trends, and we'll always stay valuable and continue to add value to our clients when we do that.
Exactly.
So, this was amazing, Marisa. Thank you so much.
Thank
Marisa, you were made for something great. So go and be awesome.
Oh, thank you.